practice or are you running a business? Valuation is the ultimate KPI.
Hey there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast, brought to you by TrueBlytics, the one and only comprehensive advisor transition management platform. This week on the show, Jeremi, Karnell, and I are joined by Kyle Simpson, the head of field strategy at FS Investments. Now, over the last few years, the TrueBlytics team and I have had the great opportunity to do some fantastic collaborative work with Kyle and his team at FS Investments. And as you'll hear in our conversation, these types of collaborations work because of a shared passion for helping financial advisors and wealth management firms build and grow valuable businesses. Jeremi and Kyle are fantastic, and you are going to love this episode. By the way, Jeremi, Kyle, and myself, we were all in the same room for this podcast. I can't begin to tell you how amazing it felt to record an episode of the show in person after 2 years of only doing shows remotely. It's awesome to be with people in person again. And yes, just in case you're wondering, the three of us fully vaxxed, boosted at the time of the recording of this episode, so we were all behaving safely. Okay. One last thing before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, SoundCloud, the YouTubes, or wherever you like to get your podcast. Jam on it. If you have a question or a suggestion for a guest or a topic for the show, please send them in, podcast@TrueBlytics.com, or swing by the website and use that little contact form, or frankly, hit us up on the socials. We're all active there. Love to hear from you. Okay, let's do this thing. Here's Jeremi and Kyle and me all in the same place. Kyle, Jeremi, fantastic to see you this morning. Exactly, Mike, we're all here. Exactly. So welcome to Austin, Kyle.
Thanks. It's good to be here. First time. It has lived up to the hype, and boy, was it hyped before I showed up. But it has met and exceeded expectations.
That's fantastic. You know, you're like the rare person now that I meet that hasn't actually been to Austin. You know what I mean? It's becoming a really common place for people to come. And you know, when Jeremi and I first moved here, a decade or so ago,
About that.
it was hopping, and it was considered that this new upcoming, thing. But it was very uncommon for people to like have a real reason to come here for business. So I guess open this thing up with what brought you to town? Or sorry, Joe.
Oh no, I was just going to say I agreed to move to Austin sight unseen. My wife, who's Canadian, went to grad school at University of Texas, and so she was in love with it. And I was just a brand statistic. I heard everything about South by Southwest and ACL, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in. And I remember flying in for the first time. And even though it's an awesome city and it's the capital of the 11th largest economy in the world, it's downtown 10 years ago. I was like, I think Indianapolis is bigger than Austin. Sure. It really looks bigger. And that's changed now. It looks like Dubai now.
That's great.
I was shocked at how big the downtown is.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is they have those video or those pictures that people have taken, like, 2011 picture of Austin downtown and the 2021, and you can scroll the bar back and forth to see the skyline change. It's really dramatic from like when we moved here.
Is Keep Austin Weird still a thing, or has that kind of...
The shirts are still a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if...
I think it's gotten too big at this point.
Yeah.
There are folks who rail of like, don't make Austin another Dallas, or don't make Austin another California type of thing.
I refer to it as little LA on the prairie. That's what Austin is.
Little LA on the prairie. It's funny. It's we love it here, obviously. But so, what brought you to Austin? Why are you here? We finally get to meet you in person.
Yeah. So this worked out great. We were here for an event with a group that we work closely with. It was their annual conference, and so we were presenting on a value add topic, which I'm sure we'll get into here in a bit. But we've got this collection of programs now that we've put under this umbrella at FS as FS Thrive, and the idea is to help advisors thrive at work, thrive at home, and thrive in their communities. And we undertook this about a year ago, and we wanted to create a collection of programs that actually helped advisors do those things, right? I think a lot of asset managers have these types of programs, and they all kind of look the same. And so we approach this, we think, with a fresh perspective and fresh set of eyes. And so one of the programs that we offer is a personality assessment that we've used at FS since the beginning of the firm. Every new hire takes this assessment. We use it in coaching and team development. It's a big part of who we are. And so we've been offering that to advisors and teams and groups. And so we were here doing that. And then you all are here. So we said, why not get together and do a recording booth for a few hours and talk all things TrueBlytics and valuation, because this is something, it was interesting at dinner last night, dropped in on a conversation, and one advisor's looking to buy another practice, and they said, hey, can you help me run some of the numbers on whether I should buy this book or not? And I said, have you guys talked to TrueBlytics? Like, oh yeah, we've heard of them. We know they're affiliated with our broker dealer. And I said, yeah, you should really give it a look, because it'll help you quantitatively decide whether this is a good decision for you all. So this topic and what you guys are doing is so front of mind for advisors right now. And so as excited as I am about the other partners we work with, I think what you all are doing and the timeliness of what you're doing is something that our advisor audience is clamoring for. So I'm excited to dig into it a little bit with you this morning.
That's fantastic. So Jeremy, for the uninitiated, as people who might be coming from the FS audience, they're like that advisor that was unfamiliar. So Kyle put it really succinctly. TrueBlytics would help them quantify some of the aspects of that decision of whether to make the M&A deal. Take us a little bit through how TrueBlytics does that.
Yeah. So TrueBlytics is pioneering what we call a transition management platform, and we're building right now the largest database of its kind in financial services around the business, health, and wellness records related to independent advisory reps and RIAs. And it's really important now, right? Because the industry, because of the legacy nature of the industry and also because of the lifestyle nature of the industry, especially with independent advisory reps, there's some process aspects of transition that are really broken, right? 84% don't have continuity plans or succession plans. 38% are going to transition in the next 10 years. And 13% transition annually just because of economic incentives. And so when you get down to thinking about the important aspects of a transition, the health and wellness of that asset that's going to be in transitions, front and center, and knowing how strong that asset is, the value of that asset. Also knowing the areas that need improvement. It really does help either prepare you so you can maximize that opportunity when it presents itself, or it can help you seek deal alignment. So if you're out there looking to grow strategically, and I mean, this is a big issue in the industry right now. Like Q1 of 2021, there were, I think, 78 deals. Compare that to 5 years ago. It was like 20. I mean, it's dramatically, the volume of deals and that was from Echelon. They reported that. They have just gone through the roof, and they're going to continue to go through the roof. The problem is 2 of every 5 deals fall apart because of a lack of deal alignment. And it's driven by the fact that you've got a lot of unsophisticated sellers out there that have these unrealistic expectations around their value. Yeah. And you've got buyers out there that are really competing with one another. I think there's like 10 buyers to every seller. And so M&A and deal flow process is really important. And so being able to have a third-party objective way to assess the health and wellness of these businesses is paramount today. And so that's really what we're delivering with TrueBlytics.
And as you're describing that, I'm thinking about this conversation from last night where the advisor said basically that, right? They said, the firm is looking for X number of dollars, and I'm trying to figure out, is that a good deal? Is that not a good deal? Mm-hmm. The book kind of looks like this demographic, and they do this type of business, and they're thinking about all the things that you're describing, but they don't have a rubric or a formula to plug that information in and then arrive at a quantifiable number that tells them, yes, this makes sense, or no, it does not.
I mean, you've got the market really being influenced by a lot of factors. Again, I mean, there's just an enormous transition that we're in the midst of. This is leading to be, well, it's a seller's market because of that. And you've got players like private equity that have entered into the mix and that have no real issue with paying the top dollars that are sort of being asked for in some respects. And so if you're not private equity, you're not sitting on a pile of that type of cash to deploy, and you still want to grow strategically, being able to have a tool that allows both parties to be able to understand where both parties sit from a business, client, and revenue stability perspective is, paramount.
And I think it would be great if you spent a couple minutes just on why this matters even to advisors who may not be actively buying or selling, right? We've been talking about this concept of the health of your business for a long time, right? We go to doctor's appointments and we take care of our physical health. We work out, we watch our diets. Right. But when it comes to quantitatively assessing the health of your business, very few people are doing that, right? So I think that's a really interesting thing you guys are.
It is. We just came back from a 2-week offsite. My chief revenue officer, my chief technology officer, and the board member, actually the godfather of our algorithm. And one of the things that we spent time talking about in that offsite was how much there's a parallel between what we're doing in the business sense to what Apple Health is doing, right? Apple Health, and I'm right now one of the biggest users of Apple Health. That is like the #1 app on my phone, and primarily because it's easy for me to tie into my health record via my primary care physician. And there's like 10,000 apps now that plug into Apple Health that take that base record and enrich it with, I'm a cyclist, and so I get that data in there. There's mindfulness apps that tell you, that will track how many times you meditate, things of that nature. And it's really robust. And we're doing the exact same thing, but on the business side in financial services. So you can think of TrueBlytics that way. We've got, the ability to establish a baseline health record. And the reason why it's important, even if you're not in transaction mode, and actually the majority of the people on our platform, we've got 15,580 the last time I checked, the majority of them, 80% of them, are not in a transaction mode. They're there for business optimization reasons. And that's because this isn't a valuation calculator. We collect 150 data points for every firm, and those 150 data points then calculate into 50 key performance indicators that are mapped against business, client, and revenue stability. Those are non-revenue factors that we then use as benchmarks and indices that factor into the risk premium of one of 4 valuations that we will calculate on behalf of your business: discounted cash flow, a multiple of revenue, multiple of EBITDA, and multiple of EBOT. And so back up from the valuations and look at the KPIs. Those non-revenue factors really are what's important for you as a business owner to look at and understand where you fall, not only within what our algorithms, how they grade you, but also how you sit with your peers from a benchmark perspective. And it's those things that either, some are factors that take a long time to fix, some take medium time, some take, they're short. And our platform will show you exactly which ones are the low-hanging fruits, sort of low complexity, high value. And so it drives your practice management behavior. It will drive the ability for you to be ready at the time of transition. And it's also great in the event that you're looking at performance of your business year over year, and especially if you have business partners in which you're looking at performance to sort of determine how bonuses get split out and things of that nature. And so we have a number of RIAs that leverage our platform simply because, they're an ensemble RIA and their bonus structures are tied to very specific performance benchmarks, and they use our platform to track that.
Yeah, I think the thing that jumps out to me most when I think about this conversation is it's an objective, independent, as you mentioned, benchmark, right? And that's so important because you think about if you're an advisor or an RIA firm and you're managing client assets, they're not just going to take your word for it that they're doing okay, right? they want to see their portfolio and their financial performance measured against some form of the benchmark, whether it's the S&P or some other index and so forth. They want to get a feel for like, how are they doing benchmark? And that's the same thing here, right? We're not relying on your broker dealer to tell you how are you.
That's right.
We're not bringing in some independent consultant who's going to, do their thing and give you their opinion of how you're doing. You are now being benchmarked against, close to 16,000 other advisors that they're entering the information the same way. Yeah. And it's really powerful to have that objectivity, right?
And it's data that's getting updated real time, and it's data at scale. So the other way that firms have looked at benchmarks are the annual benchmark studies that you can, see that come out of Fidelity or Dimensional Funds. And they're great benchmark studies, but they're small sample sizes and they're annual. So by the time they collect the data, by the time they analyze the data, and by the time they publish the data, it's generally a little bit out of date. Also, it's not diverse enough to be able to look up and down the spectrum to see really where you fit against your peers. And so that's one of the great outcomes of our data set is outside of the exchange in value that we'll give to an advisor or CEO of an RIA just around the health and wellness of their business. It then is data that feeds into a broader pure benchmark data set that then informs everyone on our platform. And so that's, and that's just data that you can tap, you can log into every day and continue to track and not have to wait for 12 months before you can see where you fall in the industry.
And to your point, Mike, about how advisors want to benchmark, when you're an asset manager and you spend your days and weeks meeting with advisors, every advisor asks you the same question. What are other great advisors doing that I'm not doing? Right? So they're already benchmarking themselves in the way that they know how, which is asking the people around them, what can I be doing better? Yeah. But the fact that you can ask that question in a way that measures you against the 16,000 some odd users in TrueBlytics and gives you that scorecard, that's, in my mind, like the most enriching feedback that you could get as a business owner versus just asking someone anecdotally, what are you hearing out there? Which is great, don't get me wrong, but it can't replace what Jeremi and team are doing with this platform.
Yeah. Something that jumped in my mind yesterday, I had a conversation with this guy, Dan Egan, who's like a behavioral finance expert and economist. And one of the things we talked about was how easy is it for advisors to keep doing the same thing they've always done, right? Like you grow a business and because of the nature of the business, it's recurring revenue, right? Clients tend to be very sticky and stay with you for a very long time.
That's right.
It's really easy to kind of fall into a rut, or as I always joke, be a little fat and happy, right? Like, I love my clients. It's a lifestyle nature of the industry, right? And one potential negative consequence of that complacency of getting comfortable is things can get away from you.
Right.
You haven't been thinking of the business that much. You haven't dived in and analyzed things in a way to make sure that everything's on track, or how am I doing? Like, are other advisors doing something differently? And so having this having this conversation and then be willing to dive in and analyze your business a little bit more is going to help you thrive.
And what I love about the platform is it doesn't just stop with here's your KPIs and here's your valuation. It then tells you, oh, by the way, if you do X, Y, and Z, here's how much your valuations will grow. Here's how you can make your business healthier. So it's not just a tool to give you a moment in time snapshot. It's a tool to help advisors run the healthiest business that they can run.
Yeah, and that just really, that's such a great point. I want to underscore that because it goes to a KPI that we recently rolled out and began to talk a lot about at the beginning part of this year, which is called unrealized value. So we are effectively Zillifying the financial services sector, all of the wealth advisory, insurance, and tax businesses that are out there. And so just as Zillow will go ahead and give you a Z estimate for your home, which is, again, that's an asset that's really important to you, right? Yeah. It's generally one of the biggest ones that you have. Your business is most likely the next. We can do that. We can give you 4 really accurate estimates of the value of your business across the metrics that I talked about earlier. But because we use 50 indices that are non-financial related factors to calculate the premium discount rate into the discounted cash flow valuation, that allows us to then show the unrealized value. Meaning, it would be great if on Zillow I could say, okay, that's my Z estimate, but what if I added a pool? Or what if I added a third garage? What would that do to my home value? That's exactly what we can show advisors across business, client, and revenue stability, and show exactly how much it's impacting their discounted cash flow valuation, because it may not be optimal. And so, on average, when we looked at this data, we looked at 6,000 IARs from our top 5 independent broker-dealers from 2018 through the end of 2020. We were on average able to show an IAR close to $300,000 of unrealized value. Just within minutes of using our platform, we can show you where $300,000 of value is you're leaving on the table if you don't address it now. And again, it takes time to address these.
And let's break that down so that I can imagine somebody going like 300 grand. What? How does that even happen? So what are we talking about when you say value? It's the valuation of the business, right? So like, what would the valuation be today, based on a discounted cash flow?
Right.
Where is that $300,000 coming from?
So we'll show the 4 different valuations that we calculate, but then in a grid, we'll show all of the different KPIs, like the firm structure. We'll grade you on your firm structure. We'll grade you on your succession readiness. We'll grade you on how many clients you add every year. We'll grade you on whether or not you use model portfolios and what percentage of reoccurring revenue you have. Depending upon the data we have across all of those different 50 KPIs, the grade is going to impact the overall discount rate. And then that has a value associated with it, meaning that because it's not optimal, we can calculate to say, if it was optimal, it would be X. But right now it's Y. And so if you fix it, you most likely can anticipate this additional increase in the intrinsic value of your firm. Yeah.
Which is cool because the advisor's taking the test and then you're giving them the answers to the test.
Yeah, exactly.
It is pretty, if you think about that, like if somebody came into your business and said, hey, if you fix this one thing, and by the way, there's all these TV shows that do that, right? There's that Restaurant Impossible type, whatever, they come in and like, hey, if you fix this menu item, you're going to have better clients or whatever. You start putting some salt and pepper on things. People like taste, it's true. It's like, kind of going back to what I was saying before, it's so easy to just get in that rut of running the business and never really thinking about what are some changes I should make, right? Because everything's routinized, right? Like your clients are sticking with you, revenue keeps coming. Every quarter you do the same type of stuff.
Right. And so then, we're talking about an individual advisor right now, right? Average $300,000. It's not big, but it's also not something to walk away from either. Now, multiply that at scale, right? And this is where we have great enterprise relationships. This is why the practice management succession planning groups at independent broker-dealers and OSJs really embrace our platform, because when in that same study, in that same analysis that we saw that we were able to provide IARs an average of $300,000 of identified unrealized value, we were able to show the heads of practice management and succession planning at the network level, front office of these independent broker-dealers, the OSJs, close to $3 billion of unrealized value across their network. Now, obviously, those are independent businesses, right? It's not going to impact the value of the independent broker-dealer or the OSJ, but that does have major impacts on the programming that they think about in the exchange of value they're promising, and why they're supporting these independent advisory reps, and why they should be recruited and considered coming to that independent
recruitment and retention.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
It's exactly right.
I was going to say that, and that's if you talk to most independent broker dealers, the CEOs of those firms, their number one job is recruitment and retention, right? They are looking to bring on new advisors, right? And they're always looking for ways to say, here's why you should come and join our firm, and being able to articulate. And not only are you going to, we're going to bring you all these awesome tech solutions and so forth, and we're really easy to work with from a compliance perspective. Like, oh, by the way, we're going to help you increase the value of your business.
Yeah.
And here's our plan for any advisor who comes into our shop.
That's
This
right.
is the thing. These are the things we do.
That's right.
It's really important.
And we show those benchmarks for each of those enterprise customers. We call them enterprises. I know others call them firms, but the independent broker-dealers and the OSJs, we're able to show where they fall against their peer groups. So not only do we show IARs and RIAs, again, peer group benchmarks that are important to them, I think we're the first platform in the industry that actually can bubble this up to the enterprise level and show very similar benchmarks. So,
It's really special. Yeah.
So I want to shift gears a little bit back to you guys at FS. I mean, so why did FS decide to do this Thrive program? It kind of feels like, you know, I mean, look, anybody who's in this industry knows the important role that asset managers play, right? And like you're number one, you're in every client's portfolio. You do provide a lot of high quality content and expertise that an advisor can use to better serve his or her client. But why have you decided to kind of go a step above and really help advisors with their business? And frankly, part of the program is also like themselves.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a couple of things. One is this is something that advisors are always asking us for, right? That they depend on asset managers, and if they're affiliated with a broker-dealer or some type of home office, those respective firms to provide them with these types of programs, right? A lot of times these offices or teams, they operate kind of on an island, right? And they're insulated, and they need these types of programs to help them understand, you know, what their peers are doing and how to best grow their business. So, you know, I can't go a week without getting a call or an email from someone in the field saying, hey, I've got an advisor who's looking for programming on how to run their business better, how to better acquire clients, succession planning, tax, you name it, right? Advisors are always thinking about these things. And I think the home office do a really great job of providing content. But if you're an RIA, you're probably not getting a lot of that stuff.
Right.
And then if you're at a home office, you know, there's always room to add complementary programs to what an enterprise is offering. And so we're happy to fill that void. So that's part one. And then part two is I think we have a really unique culture at FS. And it is a culture that is one of innovation. We have a sort of grittiness to the firm, kind of a scrappiness, and also very civically minded. And so when we think about what we do and how we differentiate ourselves, we said, man, wouldn't it be cool if we could take these kind of tenets of who we are and embody them in a program that extends our culture out to the advisors and clients that we work with. And so that's why when we conceptualized Thrive, it wasn't just about thriving at work, because we understand that in order to thrive at work, you also need to be thriving at home and being plugged in, connected to your community in order to, you know, be as high performing as you would like to be at work. And that's something that we take seriously. It's a big part of who we are at FS. So that's kind of the genesis of it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love the focus on like kind of that, are you thriving at home and in your community?
I agree. I think this program is so unique because of how integrative it is with life, right? So many programs are just laser focused on the business dynamics, and the integrative approach that you're taking really, I think, gets to the core, because it's all, I mean, one doesn't necessarily succeed without the other. And so it's just hats off, like, honestly. It's a really cool program.
Appreciate it. And we were talking to someone from the group yesterday that we were presenting to, and they were asking about the personality assessment we use. And they asked the question of, well, what if someone's doing exactly what they should be doing at work? You know, what if they're excelling, they're hitting all their benchmarks? Is there anything to do? And one of the things I brought up was ask them whether they're enjoying that work or whether they're showing up to home every night just absolutely fried and zapped. and then underperforming at home, because they may short term be doing everything that you could ask for them at work, but if it's coming out in other areas of their life, then that's really going to take a toll on them over time. And so when we think about our colleagues in FS and we think about the advisors that we work with, we understand that it's really about the whole person. And in order for them to be their best at work, that means us making time and creating programs for them to thrive at home and in their community.
That's fantastic. I had a conversation just yesterday, day before we're recording this, with a gentleman named Gil Baumgarten. He's in Houston, and he grew his business. He left the wirehouse world, started an RIA, grew from just about $500 million AUM to well over $1.5 billion. So his revenue has gone up from like making $600,000 a year when he was with the wirehouse to over like $4.5 million a year. This guy is just absolutely crushing it. And so, but he runs it on a team of 9 people, right? Wow. Really tiny. He's like, and what was really fascinating about it though, if you go check out the website, and we'll link that all up at the show when it goes public on the Modern Financial Advisor feed, the thing that's really interesting is he's really out there with his life, right? So his artwork, he makes custom furniture and he paints and so forth. And that is like right on the website. Like you can find all this stuff. Like he's very active in his community and charities and so forth. And it really leans into what you're saying. Like his whole person, he's not just, I'm all about business and that's all I do. It's like, no, I want to be part of this community, right?
Yeah, I think that's an advisor's greatest differentiator these days, is how you connect with prospective and current clients. And in a world where every advisor is thinking about planning, every advisor is thinking about tax, every advisor is thinking about client events, and the real differentiator is, do I connect with you on a personal level? And if you look at how the boundaries between our personal lives and our work lives have blurred in the pandemic, right? We're on Zooms and we're seeing into people's homes, right? So that boundary has blurred. And on social media, you're getting a glimpse into who people are outside of the office. And so I think there is a real appetite from clients to understand the advisor underneath the persona at the office. So I completely agree with that sentiment.
And this sort of harkens to that conversation that we had with Jeff Hamoy, and just how with model portfolios and robo and a lot of the AI automation that's beginning to happen with money management, that it's freeing up some space for financial advisors to become more life coaches in many respects. And so, but that also means that they need to be dialed in on their own life if they're going to connect in that way.
Yeah. And it really does help too, right? I mean, you're instead of it just being all about the numbers, right? Now I'm looking to have a lifestyle as a business, as an advisor, right? Like I want to achieve some things. Pretty fascinating. So you mentioned something just in passing, kind of in making your point there, Kyle, talking about what the pandemic has done. Like this getting through this last year and a half has been something. And it's interesting, like we've been in your house, right? We've been on a Zoom, and you've been in your house, and actually, I think you were traveling once. So I think it was at your parents' house. Right?
I live in Philadelphia, and November, December around the holidays is a great time to escape the cold of Philadelphia and go to a parent's house in Florida. I was camping out in Florida for a few months.
That's fantastic. What are your thoughts on what has happened during the pandemic that will continue after it? Hopefully, fingers crossed, next year at this time we're doing this and everything is really 100% back to normal. But what are your thoughts because you talk to so many advisors and so many firms, you have that unique perspective. What do you think is going to carry on? Things like, are we going to be continuing to Zoom with clients? What are some other changes that might have happened here that you might think advisors will carry on going forward?
Sure. I think we will continue to Zoom. I thought when we first entered the pandemic, the pendulum swung really hard one direction, and everyone was talking about we're never going back to offices and everyone's going to work from home. And I thought that's probably exaggerated, right? I think at some point we're going to get back to the way things were. Now I think we're probably going to land somewhere in the middle. I don't think offices are going anywhere anytime soon. Look, we all decided to show up in person to do this because there's something to being in the room with people that you don't get virtually. Yeah. But I do think there will be more flexibility in terms of employers getting comfortable with their employees spending some time at home working versus being in the office, maybe more flexible hours. When it comes to clients, I think that means them being more comfortable doing Zooms and phone calls instead of traveling to the office to see advisors, and also being flexible with where they're located, right? I think you're seeing more people spending months of time in one part of the country for a certain time of year and then spending the rest of the year in another part of the country. And so I think in much the same ways our personal and professional lives have blurred with the increased use in technology, I think the pandemic has kind of blurred our physical boundaries, and we're starting to spend more time in more places. And I think that's something we're all going to have to continue to adjust to. You know, what do you got? What do you all think? I'm curious.
You know, I think it's interesting. I agree with you. I think the ability for advisors to operate their businesses virtually with some of their client relationships is going to be a real deal, right? I think we've been able to do it, right? They've had the ability to communicate via Zoom and chat and email for a long, long time, right? Yep. I think what this has done is it's changed the attitude. Like, I think many clients have felt that many advisors, have felt that the clients have expected them to do things in person. And it's actually just not true, right? Like, I think about the things that I do in life, like it's a pain in the butt to, first of all, put pants on. I wear shorts a lot when I work from home. Or putting pants on, getting in my car and having to drive to your office for something that could have been handled with a quick 40-minute Zoom, right? Or having you come to my house to do that is, you know, there is a bit of this is work, right? So I think that's definitely there. I think we may see advisors change their office model too. I think, you know, in terms of, like, they may still maintain an office, but dramatically shrink it down. So they may go to, we're actually recording this in a co-working space. They may go to a co-working space model and share the office with their team versus having an expectation that all, you know, members of the team, all 10 of their advisors and staff come to the office every day. I think the last thing, and maybe this is just me because I'm in this industry with podcasts and videos and so forth, but I do see an uptick there. I think you're seeing a lot of folks realize that they should be comfortable sharing themselves online, right? Interacting and putting the word out.
I think it's a big, and I think that's part and parcel to the big push to digital transformation. I think, if anything, that the pandemic really pushed, especially the financial services sector, which I said earlier is a bit of a legacy industry. When you look at it compared to other industries and their adoption of digital tools, digital communications methods, and things of that nature, I think this was the kick in the pants, so to speak, to get people moving in that direction. So, you know, podcasting and that aspect of communication is increasing. Being able to better leverage marketing automation tools, being able to now leverage things like transition management platforms, and instead of being overly dependent on really expensive and time-consuming consultants that you had to meet with face-to-face, you've got tools now that allow you to do the same thing a lot quicker, a lot less expensive.
I'm going to draw a parallel to the comment of, we may not abandon physical space, it just may look different. And I think a good parallel to that is what happened with bookstores. So we had Barnes & Nobles and Books A Million, and then Amazon came in, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, it's the death of bookstores. And those businesses, they did see a decrease in the number of locations they had across the country. And now what do you see? Amazon is building physical in-person bookstores.
It's come full circle.
It's come full circle. So I think it's not so much that physical space is going away. I think what you're going to see is people are going to expect a different level of experience when they're showing up to do something in person. Right.
And I think there's going to be more discernment around when to do something in person. It doesn't, none of that gets replaced. I think it just becomes more strategic. Now I'm going to use an example that has nothing to do with the financial services industry. It has everything to do with just being a fintech startup. I was mentioning to you both earlier, 2 weeks ago, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina for the Venture 135 conference. So pitching in front of a lot of different venture capital firms. And a VC said an interesting thing to me because it was hybrid, right? I was there in person, and I would say probably 75, 80% of the people were there in person, but 20% of the people were there virtually and presenting virtually. And one of the VCs tapped me on the shoulder during one of the virtual presentations. And he was like, well, this kind of actually makes me really think about the people who actually made the commitment to come here.
Absolutely.
And how I should prioritize them first because they took the effort. And so I think that dynamic is going to exist in a lot of different situations. And so, and seizing on them is going to be really important. I think where we were prior to the pandemic is that it was just a shotgun approach. Everything was in person because it had to be.
Yeah. My buddy, Howard Linson, who's a venture capitalist and an angel investor, he had a podcast not too long ago where he actually talked about that, where he's like noticing a dramatic shift in the pitches, right? It used to be that people would come to you and they would dress up and they would pitch. They would look nice and they'd be ready and so forth. He's like, I'm lucky if they've taken a shower and they're willing to turn video on to try to pitch me now, right? He's like, it's really taking a dramatic turn, right? And equilibrium will find itself again, right? It absolutely will. It's funny that you guys were talking about some of the not only the impression that somebody has of you coming to them, but also like the space almost feels like a delicacy a little bit. Like, so how, like, what do we expect of the space now when we go there? It's, because it's, the bookstore is a great example. I love that. Like, people, when I go to a bookstore, and we actually do, we have kids who occasionally go there, and when you're in the bookstore, you're looking to experience something different, right? You're touching it, you're smelling it, and all that type of stuff. It is definitely different than when, like, hey, I'm having somebody on a podcast, they wrote a book, Amazon, Kindle, please let there be an audiobook. Experience, you know what I mean?
And we talked about that a couple of weeks ago when I'm talking about the executive team at TrueBlytics did an offsite for 2022 planning, and we're going to do quarterly offsites. And one of the benefits of being in a co-share space and generally working from home 99% of the time is that we can strategically pick on a quarterly basis a really meaningful place for all of us to assemble. At the beginning of November, it was in Baja. At the end of Q1, it may be in Barcelona, where my chief technology officer lives. And we can do it really inexpensively because we don't have some huge expensive lease that we're paying for as a startup. And we can bring our executive team together in a place that's just going to be so much more interesting to the time that we have together.
That just raises a really important point. The fact that Eli is over in Barcelona is for advisors. And not only are you no longer restricted, and you weren't for years and years restricted to your locale for clients. Yeah. It's time to broaden your mindset for where you find talent.
Yeah, right? That's right.
And because you have access to everybody across the country, there's no reason why you have to only have advisors or people who are your analysts or any of your staff members have to be in your locale. That's right. And they don't actually have to have 9 to 5 hours anymore, too. That's the other thing, right? There's no reason why, as an example, a lot of women want to have some flexibility because they're home with the kids, right? And they want to be able to work flexibly, so like I can drop the kids off, I can pick the kids up. There's going to be some gaps in my day there, but I'm fine staying online until 8 p.m. or whatever, doing my work, right? Yeah. That type of stuff is really going to shift, and it allows you to increase and expand your talent pool in a better way.
Sure, you get so much better talent that way. Because, think about it. Before, you had to pick real estate based off of its location talent pools, right? And oftentimes you had to pay a premium for that. But now when you open up, I've got, again, my chief technology officer, he's a Philly boy, but he's an expat living in Barcelona. So he's in Barcelona. My fractional chief financial officer lives in Boston, and so it doesn't matter. Like, it goes to the front office and the people that even administer and operate the business. That can be anywhere, frankly, because of how digital everything is.
Fantastic. Well, it's a great way to wrap this up. I've really enjoyed this conversation. So, having you here in person, after having, for the last couple of years, only seen you on the Zoom screen.
I'm not joking. For 2 years, all I've known of you is from the shoulders up.
Yeah, exactly. And when we met each other, we were both surprised at our respective heights, right? Which, by the way, so Jeremy's the tallest guy in the room. He's like 6'2", 6'3", somewhere in that neighborhood. Kyle and I are around 5'9", 5'10". You know, it depends on if we're wearing our big boy shoes or not. And Kyle's got me on the hair for sure. But it was exactly another inch, exactly. But it's just really kind of funny how surprising it is when you finally meet some people in person.
And I think that's a cool way to wrap up. You know, nothing replaces getting together in person with people, right? So I think this type of stuff will continue to happen, and people will still meet in person. But yeah, things look a little different, and it'll be interesting to see, you know, even what the world looks like 6 to 12 months from now.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yeah,
you got to come back to Austin. You've already made the commitment. So
if you're doing Barcelona for the office,
let's go to Barcelona. Let's go to Barcelona.
Yeah.
I love Thomas. It's going to be good. Fantastic, Ted. Thank you very much. It's great.
All right. Thanks.
Cheers, Mike.
Thank you very much for listening and or watching this episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. It's always fantastic to have you with us. Like I said, I am over the moon thrilled that I got to hang out with the one and only Kyle Simpson in person. Finally, it was fantastic just to have the three of us in the room recording a show. Could not be happier with the way that it came out, and super grateful to you, Kyle, and the team at FS for making this happen, and love the work you're doing with the Thrive Project. So awesome, awesome stuff. As I mentioned at the top of the show, if you haven't done so already, please do make sure you subscribe to the podcast and send in your questions and suggestions to podcast@truelytics.com. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear what your thoughts are on this episode of the show. Okay, that's all I have for you today. As always, please do make sure you stay safe and be nice to each other. We'll see you next time on the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. See ya. Bye.